Wednesday, May the 4th. Lake level is 916 3/4 and rising. You can see I still got my bibs and everything on it. Rained a bunch today, and it's supposed to rain a bunch more tomorrow. And it's actually pretty cold today, you know, it's, I don't know, in the 50s. But it looks like after tomorrow, we're probably gonna go what's gonna feel like summertime. Temperature's supposed to get in the 80s and into the 90s, so it's gonna be from one extreme to the next. But the water temperature, it's started out about 59 today, 58 around Kimbling City area, and I fished up into the mid-James and a little bit up into White, but it never got it above that. You know, it's been warming up quite a little bit each day in the afternoon, especially if you're getting some stained water, but today was pretty raw out. Water temperature never changed, but a lot of different bites going on. I still think a lot of the better fish are coming sight fishing on beds. It seems like each day we're starting to catch more and more fish, and catching a lot of them on Ned rigs, split shot rigs, and fluke, floating worm, you know, some on a top water, just kind of a little bit of everything. But the watercolor in the lake, I mean, if you run out like the White River from about Baxter, you hit a mud line, and the water's really stained all the way till you get up past the mouth of the Kings, and then it gets clear again, you know, way up in the White. And it seems like that area also has about the worst moss. Now, if the lake keeps coming up tonight, we flipped some bushes today, but we didn't have any success. But the water keeps coming up, I think there'll be a bite in the bushes. But most of the places I'm throwing the split shot and the Ned rig, and it doesn't seem to matter what color Ned rig, you know, I'm throwing like a PBJ, green pumpkin, just a lot of different colors, as long as they're kind of natural or like crawdad colors, they seem to be working. But I'm throwing them in the areas where I believe the fish are spawning, in the spawning pockets, some all the way in the backs of the pockets, and they don't necessarily have to be in the creeks. You can be just off a pocket off the main lake, and there's fish spawning in them as well. And I haven't got much of a main lake bite going, but the wind's been so bad, you know, the last several days, it's been hard to fish a lot of main lake. One thing I haven't been doing is throwing a Carolina rig and a football jig out in that 15 to, you know, 25 foot of water. But I believe there's probably enough fish that have done spawning, and some that hadn't spawned as well, but there should be out there on some of the main lake points. Now, as far as the fluke, what I'm actually throwing, it's a big bite, a 4 and a 5 inch jerk minnow. You know, it's real similar to like a fluke style bait. You know, Strike Kings calls theirs the caffeine shad. But I've been mixing it up between a 4 and a 5 inch. This morning, they bit it pretty good for probably 30, 45 minutes, and then after that, it seemed like the fish would come up and swat at it, and come up and look at it and turn and go back down. I don't know whether it was, you know, the water cooled down a little bit last night, but they didn't really want it too much past 8 o'clock this morning. But they've been biting it throughout the day. It's kind of hit or miss. And you catch some good fish on the fluke, and also you throw a, you know, floating worm. I've been throwing a white and a yellow and a bubble gum as well. And you can rig them, just like I'm rigging up a fluke. You know, I'm usually throwing about a 4-rod hook, sometimes a 5 if I'm throwing it on a bait caster. That'll give you a little bit of weight to cast it. But if you're throwing it on a spinning rod, I'd probably throw, on the trick worm, probably a 3-aught hook, you know, fine wire hook on light line. But, you know, I'm throwing this in some of the same areas that I'm split shotting and Ned rigging. But also, it seems to be a few more fluke fish on like the 45-degree banks. It's got bigger rock or ledge rock. They seem to be pulling them fish up off the ledges. And we didn't have any topwater bite today. And I've been getting, you know, it was a perfect day for it, other than the bait wasn't up and the fish weren't chasing. But we tried it quite a little bit. But, you know, topwater baits that have been working good for me has been a wake bait and a walking bait, like Azara spook, or I've been throwing a Strike King Sexy Dog. But the wake baits are working real well on some days, you know, reeled in real slow. I still think there's a lot more fish to come in the spawn, but right now we've got them kind of in all three stages. We've got some that are done, some that are doing it right now, and I think there's a lot more coming. But some days, especially in the morning, you'll see a lot of empty beds, and then you might come back to that area later in the day and there's fish on them. I think with some of these cool nights, some of the fish are pulling back out. And just the opposite, when we've got a good warm night, you may have seen beds that were empty the day before, but they seem to be coming up overnight onto some of them beds that were empty the day before. So a little bit of everything going on. You know, I've been up in the James River, Kimberling, the dam area. And I think probably one of the better areas has been like Baxter, or from about the mouth of the White up to Campbell Point. Seems to be the most productive area, like Big Creek. I'm still not seeing a ton of smallmouth. You know, we are catching a few every day. Species are mixed. We had probably about 30 fish today, and they were mixed between smallmouth, Kentuckys, and largemouths. Most of the largemouths seem to come on a little bit steeper banks, the 45-degree banks in the creeks. And especially, you know, if you're fishing that fluke, especially if you're way back in the creeks or the pockets, try to stay in what I would call a channel swing. It's the deepest part of the creek. Instead of the flatter side, stay on the side that's a little bit deeper. And I seem to be catching more fluke fish in the areas like that. And also I've been catching some on a shaky head. Now we didn't today or yesterday, but I've been catching some on a 1/4 ounce and a 3/8 ounce shaky head. You know, you can throw it a lot of the same places you're throwing a split shot or a mojo rig or Ned rig. You know, any type of little finesse worm seems to be working good in them areas that them fish are bedding. Like I say, the smallmouth down lake, you know, from Kimberling City down, should be a little bit better than what it is. I think it's getting better, but they're still not loaded up real thick in some of the areas. Maybe once a few more of them get done spawning, it'll be, you know, a little bit more aggressive bite on the smallmouth. But looks like the weather's going to be really good this weekend, so it's a good time to get out fishing. And good luck to the kids in the National Youth Group this weekend. Hope they have a good, safe weekend. Till next week, good luck, good fishing.